If you are watching this, congratulations. You are in the Final Four. You've done good so far. Now you need to set your lineup for this week. So let's do it. And let's start with running backs here. Again, I don't need to talk about any of the guys in the S tier here. All of these guys have been very, very good recently. What a late season bounce back from Josh Jacobs, I might say. Good thing we told people to buy him. Is that right? Let's go down to the A tier here.
Gibbs. We need to note Gibbs because Monty's out.
Gibbs, well, okay, you were already starting Gibbs anyways, but Gibbs is the running back.
But now he's like
two.
top two every single week.
Yes, so. That is true. I'll go to the A tier, though. Derrick Henry playing the Steelers this week. Tough matchup. Derrick Henry's been a little bit underwhelming recently, so it's worth noting that. James Conner, fresh off a 30-point game playing the Carolina Panthers. Absolute must start. Kyron Williams playing the Jets. Tougher matchup, but Kyron's been good as well. Joe Mixon has been a little bit slower recently, and he has a tough matchup against the Chiefs, so it's worth noting that. Alvin Kamara, we're going to rank him like he's playing. We're also going to rank Kendra like Kendra is the starter. So just so you know, if Alvin Kamara is playing, this is where we're ranking him. If he's not, obviously you would put Kendra in the next tier. Actually,
C-tier, technically.
You must have really skewed that one down, didn't you?
Not that much. We didn't have them that far apart.
All right.
But
so if Kamara plays, this is where he would go. Bucky again is the top 12 option when he's totally healthy. 13 points last week in PPR leagues. Playing the Cowboys is a really good matchup. If he can stay healthy, stays off the injury report. Honestly, again, you're always starting Bucky Irving right now. And James Cook playing the Patriots, and James Cook had another good game last week. He's kind of hit or miss. Ray Davis had a touchdown, didn't matter. And it's a good matchup against the Patriots. Patriots are top 6 in giving up fantasy points to running back. So all these guys, again, every back up to this point and through the next tier, guys, you're absolutely starting.
Yeah, B tier at the top is going to be Chuba Hubbard. He's been a guy that a lot of people have trashed us for having too low. Then we put him up a little bit higher, and this is right where he belongs, honestly, because he sucks. So seriously, he has a good matchup against Arizona. He's just in a bad offense that isn't very predictable, even though Bryce has shown signs of life. It just is the truth and the reality of a running back in an offense that isn't that great. So Aaron Jones also going to be in this tier. It's like pulling teeth watching him try to get the points that you expect him to get every single week, and he loves fumbling the ball. So Breece Hall going to be in this tier, playing the LA Rams. It's a nicer matchup. His day was kind of saved last week after Devontae Adams had 40 points and Garrett Wilson had 14, and he got like a last second or end of the game goal line touch and ended up getting like an 11-point day, but he's been so inconsistent. Kenneth Walker, we expect to be back healthy. If Kenneth Walker is not playing, you could put Charbonnet here, and I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to put Charbonnet even higher than where Kenneth Walker is currently. Jonathan Taylor will continue to be in this tier right ahead of Brian Robinson and Tony Pollard. Jonathan Taylor is getting like 100+ rushing yards consistently. I think he's been averaging 100+ rushing yards over like the last month. I could be totally off base there, but he's been good on the ground. He's just not getting red zone opportunities at all. He's not averaging 100+ over last month, but he's had 100 yards last week. He had 96 yards the week before that. He's had multiple 100-yard rushing games when he's been healthy this year. The dude can't get in the end zone, and he won't as long as the AR is playing right now. So B-Rob and Tony Pollard, they're a lot more self-explanatory. High-ish floor and a lower ceiling. Tony Pollard's going to have the better matchup against the Colts.
Starting in the C tier, Rico Dowdle. He's been solid recently. I would flex him. I think he's still somebody in this range where you're starting him. Garendo's kind of the same thing, playing the Dolphins. Jerome Ford, obviously the lone back in Cleveland after Nick Chubb breaks his foot against the Bengals, is a good matchup. DeAndre Swift against the Lions. That should be a high-scoring game. Kendre Miller, again, we're going to rank Kendre Miller like he's the starter. I think he's somebody that you would consider flexing as somebody in your fantasy football lineup if he does end up being the starter. Najee Harris playing the Ravens, a tough matchup this week. They've been very good against the run. And then Rachaad White against the Dallas Cowboys. And Rachaad White had 13 points, I think, last week.
14 to Bucky's 13.
Yeah, and so he's still flexible, I think, if you have no other options. So
yeah, Tyron Tracy will be at the top of the D tier. He's been falling because he's starting to split the backfield again with Devin Singletary, so he's on the way down. Ramondre Stevenson, you know exactly what he is, and that's inconsistent. Pacheco has honestly not really been himself since he came back from the leg break, and who would have thought that would have happened? Another 5-point game, 13 carries. He hasn't been efficient at all. It's going to take time for him to get better, and he's just not a guy that you trust in your lineup. Travis Etienne will be right behind him. Gus Edwards starting to split the backfield with Kamani Vidal. That game last week where they were down so quickly and they lost by quite a bit, it was just not made for the running backs. It wasn't made for a Greg Roman offense where they want to establish the run. They didn't have time to establish the run, so we're going to give Gus Edwards a little bit of a break here, but again, you're not super excited about flexing him either. Zach Charbonnet going to be at the top of the F tier here, and I'll just close it out with all your basically backups if anyone else in front of them gets hurt, like you've seen with Kenneth Walker Walker consistently. You're going to be smash starting Zach Charbonnet. He's going to be great. Tank Bigsby, Jalen Warren, Braylon Allen. Tyjae Spears, worth noting, he had a 27-point game. Don't be fooled by that necessarily because they were playing the Bugles defense, who still found a way to allow the Titans to score a ridiculous amount of points against them. And he got a lot of that kind of in the fourth quarter where they were just playing YOLO football because they were down by so much. And then you've got Kareem Hunt, Ray Davis coming off a touchdown game. Algier, who always finds a way to score a touchdown as well, will be at the tail end of this tier.
Let's go to wide receivers. In the S tier, you've got all these guys. We don't need to spend a ton of time talking about them. Let's go to the A tier. Mike Evans, playing the Dallas Cowboys. Mike Evans had a pretty good game last week.
Yeah, like 30 points.
So, he's definitely somebody that's been back in your starting lineup now, and you're absolutely loving it. Just in time for me to play him in the Flock League.
He's going to find his way into the 1,000-yard club again.
Yeah, he needs 86 yards per game.
250 yards.
Yeah. So I think you're right. A.J. Brown, welcome back to goodness. A.J. Brown, stay goodness, please. Devontae Adams, again, like he looked vintage too. They got the Rams this week, and just with as good as they've looked, I mean, I'd keep him up here as well. Garrett Wilson in the same tier. Both of them have the Rams, and then the other, you've got Brian Thomas playing the Raiders this week. Brian Thomas, total miss on our part by ranking him as low as we did kind of when Trevor Lawrence went out, and for the rest of the season, he's just been freaking good.
He keeps
just good.
Even with the inconsistent volume, he's finding ways to produce,
good.
So you just kind of have to respect it.
And the same kind of thing with JSN. I mean, JSN's still wide receiver 1 in the season. These guys are all, rank them any way you want, you're starting them every week, no matter what.
Yep, B tier going to have Drake London. Kirk Cousins has been struggling a bit of recent, but Drake London is still so good and so consistent. T. Higgins going to be behind Jamar Chase consistently, but again, doesn't really matter with the amount of passing volume that Burrow's supporting at the moment. DJ Moore has the Lions. That's a really good matchup for him. So even with the unpredictabilities of how the Bears offense is going to do overall, you still like DJ Moore in this matchup where the Lions have suffered, it feels like, more injuries than anyone else in the league at this point. Jerry Jeudy, there's a lot of questions around the Browns, and is Jameis going to be the starter heading into this week? If Jameis is a starter, you honestly want to rank Jeudy a little bit higher. If it's DTR, you have more questions. Avery and I kind of just found a little bit of a middle ground here, and this is where he's going to be because regardless, he's commanding a ridiculous amount of volume there, and he's been on a ridiculous tear that has resulted in him being a low-end wide receiver 1 right now. So you've got Malik Neighbors also in the same sort of situation, a bad situation, but he's commanding so much volume that he's a wide receiver 1 on the season, and he's had a really, really nice high floor over the last month since he came back from the injury. Lab McConkey playing the Denver Broncos. He just had another really, really great game. Scored like 16 points, 7 targets, 5 receptions. So even in a game that's like, nothing insane, it was still impressive that when they were down by so much, they got absolutely walked over by Tampa Bay. He still looked great. He still looked good. He was still getting opportunities in the red zone, and we're confident that's going to continue on. Playing Denver, which is generally going to be a knock against wide receivers, but Patrick Surtain is really banged up this week. Not really banged up, but he's got an ankle sprain. He might miss a week. So,
driving down to the C tier, Tyreek, after 2 20-point games, not great game. Again, only had 2 catches. Cooper Kupp, goose egg. So you're still starting both of these guys. We're still in the range. You're starting all these wide receivers. Every single wide receiver in this tier you're starting. So again, any wide receiver ranked up to this point, rank them any way you want. Devonta Smith, 30 points last week. You were flexing him anyways. You're still starting or flexing him now. Now you have a little bit more confidence. Khalil Shakir continues to be a wide receiver 2. 16 points last week. He's just solid. Juwan Jennings only had 5 points. A little bit disappointing for Juwan Jennings. So we move him down a little bit. He did have 9 targets last week. He only caught 2 of them. So
it was a rain game.
So worth pointing out. And he does have the Dolphins this week, which is a tough matchup for him. Jordan Addison, neutral matchup this week playing the Seahawks. And, Addison has been touchdown dependent, but he's been scoring touchdowns. So it doesn't really matter how dependent you are on them if you're just scoring them all the time. So I think you got to start Addison right now.
Yeah. Darnell Mooney at the top of the D tier. He's been more inconsistent of recent, very much tied to the status of Kirk Cousins and if he's going to throw 5 picks or, a few touchdowns. And Jacoby Myers is going to be a lot more consistent with a lower ceiling. And he's got Jacksonville this week, a great matchup. But Desmond Ridder is just not a guy that on a week-to-week basis you're going to trust to consistently provide volume for both Bowers and Myers. So we'll see if he can kind of continue on what O'Connell was able to do consistently, and Minshew. Got to see a bigger sample size there. And then DK taking on the Vikings. He has not been very productive at all. That's why he's so low. Calvin Ridley, it sucks that he's in such a terrible situation. He's getting a lot of target volume. He's getting a lot of opportunity. It's just not catchable target opportunity because the quarterbacks are so bad there. He does play the Colts, though, so if you have to flex him as an emergency option this week in the playoffs, you're not hating it, like absolutely hating it, because the Colts, can get schooled by guys as talented as Ridley. Adam Thielen and Keenan Allen will be at the tail end of this tier, a lot more unpredictable, but again, they kind of play top-ish options in their offense, Thielen more than Keenan Allen, but Keenan Allen's going to be in the better situation.
And Thielen would be higher, honestly, if Jalen Coker hadn't come back, and you saw the big touchdown last week go to Coker.
21 points, yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr., yeah, I mean, again, just not super great. Playing the Panthers, though, it's a decent matchup.
He's been the most unpredictable guy this year.
He's very unpredictable. Rome Odunze playing the Lions. That could end up being a pretty good offensive shootout there. So we'll see Jalen Waddle playing the San Francisco 49ers. He's obviously hurt, so you could take him off this rankings if he doesn't play. We just wanted to rank him just in case. J-Mo has been hit or miss, but he's, when he hits, it's high upside. He's a good high upside flex option, as is Quentin Johnston, who had 10 targets last week and continues to score touchdowns. Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed. What a fall from grace from Jaden Reed, I might say.
He had 11 points last week.
And still, only 6 targets. Like, you're still not seeing the target volume you want to from Jaden Reed. So
Jacobs is really impacting everyone in that offense, honestly.
Which is, honestly, that's the way we thought it was going to go.
Yep.
And it has. DeAndre Hopkins, 14, 13, 13, and 8. He's playing only about 50% of snaps in that offense. Like, you don't feel super great about starting him.
Especially with Wentz.
Yeah. And Amari Cooper completely disappeared last week, so I guess you can consider it, but it's risky. And Tillman, obviously with the, first it was Tillman, all the hot stuff in Cleveland, and then it's Jerry Jeudy. And so, he hasn't played, obviously, the last couple games, but hoping he can come back from his concussion this week, and we'd rank him here to start. He'd be a little bit of a riskier flex option, and I'll let you blaze through the last two.
Romeo Doubs will give him a little tip of the cap after a 2-touchdown game, 19 points last week. He's got the Saints this week, which is another really good matchup, so maybe he can do something again. Then you got Deebo Samuel. At this point, the only reason you ever be starting him is because of name value. Keon Coleman coming off a 7-point game in a matchup where they scored like 45 points against the Lions. Another good matchup against New England. Again, not trusting any of these guys. Nick Westbrook-Akine, Dontavion Wicks, MVS, Xavier Legette, Cooks, Wanda Robinson, Xavier Worthy. Again, every single one of these guys you're not comfortable starting.
And you could put Jalen Coker in there somewhere. Like, he's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
He's been fairly solid. So tight ends, this is a crapshoot. We're going to rank 15 tight ends, and that's it. S tier, Bowers, McBride, Kittle, Jonnu. John has been great. And then I think he deserves to be moved up to the S tier. A tier is going to be Kelsey and Njoku and Hawkinson. The best matchup there is Njoku. He has the Cincinnati Bengals next week, hoping he can come back healthy. The B tier, we got Freiermuth, Laporta, who has salvaged his season, does have the Chicago Bears next week. Mark Andrews as well. He had a touchdown last week, but he plays the Steelers. All these are decent matchups. And then in the C tier, Hunter Henry, obviously tough matchup against the Bills. Cade Otton playing the Cowboys. You've got Tucker Kraft up here, who's been a little bit hit or miss, but he has some upside. Jake Ferguson, who's been underwhelming, but he's still a better start than a lot of these guys like, Kyle Pitts and Dalton Kincaid. And then Noah Gray actually has been, he's the tight end on the season?
14 on the season.
So, I mean, again, if it's Wentz, probably not Noah Gray. And then Schultz, I'd probably start Schultz over him. It's just a crap show after that. And if you're starting somebody below that, you're probably screwed. So, QBs.
Yeah, so the QBs, again, S tier, not going to change with the top guys. Allen, who's had like almost a combined 100 points over the last 2 weeks. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. And then we will include Joe Burrow here. His volume is ridiculous. He's a QB4 on the season. He deserves to be here with how much production he's been having. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Tua, and Bo Nix. Also, Sam Darnold we're going to squeeze in here for the matchup against Seattle. That one's a little more debatable. That's fine. But again, every single one of these guys has a decent amount of passing volume. They've shown that they can be ultra productive any given week. B tier, you got Jordan Love, and then Purdy, Herbert, and Goff. Goff coming off a nice 5-touchdown game. He's got the Bears, which is a little bit of a tougher matchup from a pass game perspective. They've allowed the least amount of points to quarterbacks this season, so just something to keep in mind. Matt Stafford at the top of the C tier. We think he'll bounce back after the monsoon game. Anthony Richardson, you can't trust. His game was salvaged last week against Denver with a rushing touchdown, like a 30-yard rushing touchdown,
right
I think.
Yeah.
And then Bryce Young, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson will also be in this tier. And then Drake May at the tail end, rushing upside, rushing value there. And then Cousins, Stroud, Caleb Williams, and Cooper Rush at the D tier. And you don't want to be going any further than that. It gets ugly.
Yep. So there you go. Good luck. We'll be back next week for the championship week rankings, but I very much am rooting for you. I hope you win. We both are. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you later.